Right now, we are in the Mountain House, the Peak Performance Mountain House. Thank you to Charlie for organizing this whole event. It's going to be a 7-day week. So we're on day first right now. And it's going to last 3 days with the creators. So they're all standing behind the camera, 8 very inspiring creators and women. And the second part of the week, it will be with Women Collective. So we're really looking forward to this part as well. It's going to be a whole week around the Freeride World Tour, which today we have Alicia Cenci sitting with us. You are head of sustainability of Freeride World Tour and filmmaker. You excited for this week?
Yeah, very excited for the week.
Yes. So what does that entail for you to be head of sustainability during the Freeride Tour here in Val Thorens?
So usually it's a lot of work before the season starts. And here we had a roundtable on biodiversity on Friday with all the local stakeholders to think about the impact of Freeride World Tour on the biodiversity. Um, and today we're doing the podcast. Tomorrow we're doing a survey on mobility on the competition to understand better how people travel to a competition because we are calculating our carbon footprint. So it's a little bit of that. And then on other stops, I just have some people doing whatever needs to be done for me not to travel everywhere because I have other film to do.
Yeah, you're a very busy filmmaker as well, which we have to explore that side also of your career. So first, talk a bit about who you are. How did you get here today sitting with us, talking about the freeride, filmmaking, and women empowerment?
So I was actually raised here between Val Thorens and Courchevel. So I'm really a mountain kid. Always been really passionate about the mountain. And I started working with Freeride World Tour 14 years ago. Um, I started as a merchandising intern, and then a few years later, I became head of communication and video for Freeride World Tour. And then I left the company and just became a freelance as a head of sustainability. And it was just out of interest, and I just offered that to Freeride World Tour, and I said, I think there's things to do on that side, and it should be a priority for such a sport. And they were like, yeah, 100%, let's go. And that was in 2019 when we started the sustainability program.
So before you, there was no head of sustainability. You were the first one to create and acquire that role.
Yeah, we tried in 2012. And then by this time, it was a lot of greenwashing, really, in all industries, not only in the ski industry. And we didn't feel confident enough. We were like trying a little bit to do this and that. But it was really like we felt a lot of imposter syndrome. And then 7 years later, I think the whole industry was more ready and the people in the company as well.
Totally. And you feel like the shift was intentional because people push for it, or it was more organically the whole community are aware of the impact of climate change and the impact that a sport where you enjoy the nature needs to also protect its environment?
Yeah, exactly. I think we all know that our sports are nearly the first one to get hit by climate change. Um, but it's also easy when you're working 100% all the time, your head's just on the competition and all that, just to um, forget and be focused on having a safe competition and having everyone down and having a world champion at the end of the season. It's also nice to have someone from the outside saying, hey, I think we should do that, and just taking care of this project. And yeah, I think,
But that's wonderful initiative, and thank you so much for pushing for that role to be done, to have the tour safer, greener, and more equal. What would be the exact strategies for the athletes to make it greener for their to make it greener for them? So is it mostly about travel management?
yeah, it's a lot of that actually. And so no one's surprised, Freeride Water's impact is mostly in the traveling because of athletes, staff traveling all around the world, but also fans going to competitions. And on the athlete side, because we don't book their travel, what we do is that we refund 100% of their transport if they travel by public transportation. So would they take the bus, the train, to come here in Val Thorens or wherever, we would pay for that to try and encourage them to actually have a bit less impact through their travels.
That's wonderful. That's a very good initiative to reimburse for public transport. You guys did amazing on that. And when we're talking about making the tour equal and safer, what do the safer entails in that job title?
So safety has always been Freeride Ultra's number one priority because we are doing an extreme sport, and the organization has always been really full on and putting all the needed attention to mountain safety. My role is just to say, okay, for the competition side, there are guides, there are people taking care of that, but we are promoting a risky sport and we should educate people. So together with some of Freeride Ultra partners, we are doing some free safety education sessions. So today we had one, and we basically take groups of people out on the mountain and just tell them a bit more about mountain safety and how to use all the safety equipment and all that. So this is one part, and also mental health is part of the safety aspect now. We're trying to provide the athletes with a mental health workshop, which is going to happen here in Val Thorens on Tuesday. We also provide the staff with mental health workshop, and we provide the athletes with a list of mental health therapists that they can contact and have a discount if they say that they are a Freeride Ultra athlete.
This is so important. Yeah, the mental health outside the sport, being in a competitive environment, especially, there's a lot of pressure coming from yourself, coming from the outside, coming from your sponsors. It's can be very overwhelming by moments for sure. And do you also help with when athletes retire with that transition where a lot of athletes will find often kind of an identity crisis and they will need help in that area too to transition into a different career path?
So not exactly. We talk about it during mental health workshops. Um, and we try to hire as many retired riders as possible, as we can see with Jacqueline Pollard, who is now a judge, who with Hadley Hammer, who is also with us. So we try to work with them because they're also very professional of that sport as well. But it's a good question, and I think that's one very important topic that we never really addressed yet. Also because it's always a bit blurry when people retire or don't like. Yeah, some people just don't qualify for next year, and then maybe they just give up, or maybe they just try again and come back. So it's just a bit, yeah, a blurry line.
Totally. It's hard to know when if somebody takes a 2-year break and they're retired and then they're like, ah, let me just come back. It's too much fun.
Exactly.
I miss this. Yes.
Yeah.
So coming out of retirement happens often. So then just following up with the athletes with their mental health is just a wonderful thing to do, no matter what. And the third part of your job is making it equal. And a big part of equal right now is about the women. So there's tangible change within the Freeride World Tour. So equal pay arrived in 2020. So around 5 to 6 years ago. Now there's a woman-only freeride tour, which is led by Peak Performance. So completely sponsored by them. So they made this happen. And there's a woman-only judging clinic. So if you want to get in front of the scene or behind the scene, the tours got you in a safe environment. So what do you think it was important to implement those 3 actions?
So in 2022, I think it was, we gathered with or we gathered a group of people that we called the Gender Equality Task Force. And those people were stakeholders from, like, representative from all the stakeholders around Freeride World Tour. So former athletes, current athletes, qualifiers, athletes, coaches, judges, staff. And we gathered and we're like, okay, what are the main issues with leading to not such a gender equal sport today in sport, governance, and communication? And then we discussed with those people. We gathered 3 times. And out of that, we released a master plan with like 30 actions, concrete action that we would want to put in place in the coming 10 years. And the actions that you mentioned are just part of it. And let's say the tip of the iceberg. And I think we realized that it was really important in such a male-dominated sport to provide non-mixed events for women, and mostly in competitions. For instance, when we did the first Freeride Her, which is the 100% women freeride competition for qualifiers and juniors in Verbier, we sold out pretty much straight away. And then the person who won that competition was Lena Cotter, and it was her first competition ever, and she's now on the Freeride World Tour. And so it does work when you put people in, women in safe environment where they feel confident, they feel that they're not gonna have to do anything else than just perform, then it just works. And we have great feedbacks from the parents who say, okay, my daughter never wanted to compete in freeriding, even though the brothers were competing and stuff. And then for the freerider, she said, yes, okay, I want to do it. And she actually had a great experience. So that's motivating.
So motivating. And she made it to the Freeride World Tour, the last final step of the freeride.
Yeah,
Wow.
Lena is now on the Freeride World Tour, yeah.
Amazing. Did you compete in freeride yourself?
I didn't.
What was your ski parkour like?
I just did some alpine skiing as every kid. And then my friends from those valleys around started qualifying on the Freeride World Tour. And I did a bit of telemark competition actually, but this I forgot about.
What does a telemark competition goes about?
It's just slaloms. Telemarks.
Slaloms on telemark. Oh my God, that sounds hard.
It was like 15 years ago, so even more. But yeah,
wow,
maybe it changed. I hope so. And then I just got into freeriding just because my friends were starting to get into it, and that was it.
Wow. And how would you say? Because we brushed a bit over it earlier, but we spoke on the phone before, and you explained to me how you got involved with the tour in the first place, because it's a very inspiring organization to get involved in. Therefore, there's so many people wanting to get involved, snowboarders and skiers, to work behind the scene and help around. So how do you need to tell the story more in depth of how did you manage to get a spot in to start making your way up?
So I applied for an internship 14 years ago at Freeride World Tour, and I did get the internship. It was a merchandising internship, so I was selling t-shirts, and it was not really as fancy as now. It was just me, tiny tent in the middle of a parking lot, and selling t-shirts. That was not such nice t-shirts as today, actually. But that's how I started, and then I got hired as merchandising manager or something like this. And then I just switched to head of account management, and head of communication and video. And then I quit, not because I didn't like it anymore, but it's just very intense and it's a lot of events, and I'm still here. So it's kind of my like toxic ex that I never got to get rid of. Still here 14 years later. Yeah.
14 years later, yeah. But you kind of managed to find a great compromise, because you said it's quite involving, but now you're doing the freelance. So that means you go on and off, you go by contracts. So you found a compromise to enjoy your toxic ex.
Exactly. No, exactly. And it's a really fun organization to work with. And it's a very, like, anyone who would come from a career at Freeride Tour, I think is really good person to hire, because then you're really flexible and you're really able to do anything in any kind of situation, in the dark, not in the dark, in minus 20 degrees, with sun, delaying 3 days of competition, doing it 2 days before. So yeah.
Do you have any stories of the delays and how much commotion it creates, that when the weather window is just, nope, not today, not today, not today, and it just keeps on going? How does that look behind the scene for you guys organizing and having to extend people's stay? And financially, it must be a lot also.
Yeah, I have actually an anecdote on Haynes. So it was in Alaska. I think it was the second year we went there in 2016, if I remember well. Um, we pushed it. We had to. We still had to create some content, so we were bringing the athletes to like disc golf in the forest, or go cat skiing, because it was not possible to go upper, or we went to do any kind of touristical thing. And then we were going towards the very last day of the weather window, and the day right after would be sunny. Finally, the day that we were all waiting for. And then the founder and the athletes manager said, okay, we're going to vote. We're going to make athletes vote if they want to push it one day later. Then it would mean pushing everyone's flight one day later. And then we decided to take a decision upon their voting. So we went there to the riders meeting and we asked them to vote. And of course, everyone raised their hand and said, yes, they want to do it. And so basically it's logistically, it's crazy what they do on Freeride Tour. And I think people don't really realize how much of an effort is that to do such event and do such a live webcast up there, because usually live webcasts happen in TV town studios. It's like 20 degrees. The equipment is not moving. Now the equipment is just sleeping outside in minus 20, and people are standing like hours in the tent, in the cold. So it's really like an impressive one.
It's a lot to manage. Oh my God. The cameras and you guys have always the most insane weather, I feel, during the windows of the free riding. Oh, and how do they fund most of this is it, so you have a little bit of a fee to enter, but where does this whole organization, the financial comes from? How do we make it even bigger if we wanted to?
A lot of it comes from sponsorship. So resorts are paying to get Freeride World Tour to come to their resort. And then all the sponsors like Peak Performance, and all the others are paying for it. Of course, there's a bit of merchandising sales as well, but it's not much. TV rights, but most of it is coming from sponsors.
Okay. Well, it's a wonderful event, and we're so excited to watch it tomorrow. I have a fellow Canadian, Justine Follapointe, who's a peak rider who's going to ride. I'm very excited to see her ride down the mountain. I can't wait. Another part of your journey, which involves skiing as well, but mostly like winter sports, is your filmmaking career. A very successful one. So you have more than 6 awards with very prestigious festival. When we look at you online, the first titles that come up is Tandem, Verso, Didi, and the last one is Fragment Choisi. All wonderful. I just watched all of them, actually binge watched one after each other. And they all go under one umbrella, which is the winter sports. And kind of, I would say to me as an audience, it was women empowerment. And the word that you choose to describe is freedom. So you use that almost in every movie. So how the women find freedom through the mountains and through the community around them. So what does freedom means to you?
It's a good question. I think it's just feeling confident enough and feeling that you don't have to prove anything to anyone, practicing your sport and enjoying it and doing whatever makes you feel happy on the mountain. Um, and I think that that's what I want to show when, of course, it's easy in European countries and such to talk about this, but sometimes um, we've met women in other countries where it is not a given and it is something that they had to fight for.
Definitely. And we saw it in your movie. I'm going to look up her name so I say it right. It's Dawa Yangsu. Perfect. So you work with her. She's a Nepalese Sherpa. It's the movie Didi. And then she attempts her first Marion attempts her first 6,000-meter peak with the help of Dawa. And you mentioned that you learned a lot from her career as a Sherpa, especially in the environment she grew up in. So she has paved her own career. Why do you think her leadership and legacy inspired you so much?
So she's a guide now, actually. So she is the first Nepali woman to um, be certified as a guide from Chamonix, like the biggest guide certification. And she's coming from a tiny village in a valley that is really not the Khumbu Valley, like the Everest Valley. It's another one. So she doesn't get to see tourists every day, like kids growing up in the Everest Valley. And she was just always very um, passionate by the mountain and always looking at it, but never allowed to go because she was never really like, or never really invited, not allowed. But and one day, a group of American, including Conrad Anker, um, saw her and started to talk with her, and she was probably a teenager by the time, and she said, "I want to go with you climbing the mountain." And her mom said yes, and then she started her climbing journey like this. And this was so inspiring because she could have just stayed there and still be owning her parents' tea house, and but she fought for it, and yeah.
It's a lesson that goes just far beyond the mountain. It's really about finding your freedom, because you mentioned in this too that often there's kind of a traditional way to go about life, which is you get married quite young in that environment, and then you start having a family and you work around the house. So she was able to show to the next generation um, how mountain can bring freedom to you,
Yeah.
and freedom of will, of choosing. And that's very, very powerful. And did you feel when you were younger that you were represented in the movies, the mountain movies you were watching?
No, not really. I think it was just my role models were alpine skiers mostly, and there were no real free riders. Not really. Yeah.
Well, me neither. When for me, my environment is the park, and there was not a lot of women parts, and it affected a lot because I feel like when you're missing something, it shapes immersively what you're gonna become, because then you're seeking to feel what you missed. And now we see it way more women movies and included, so a lot of unisex parts. So we have parts of writers that write together, women and men, and it's not divided. So that's very cool to see. But something that is still need to be worked on, especially in the park industry, is having a production team, the people that produce the movie, being mixed. So having men and women. It's mostly men right now. And for you, you chose in most of your movie to have a full women production crew, women writers, and women guides. How do you think that shapes your movie?
So I'm trying. It's not always the case. And for instance, for Fragment Choisi, which is a movie we did with Elisabeth Gerritsen and Peak Performance, we had to do the movie in 2 years because we couldn't find enough women filmmakers that could go and film with Elizabeth when I wasn't there. So I'm trying. It's not always the case. And what I think it brings is just a different person. Like, the athlete is so different. I see such a difference between when we are just women, a group of women, and then when there's even just one guy. And of course, there's great guys, and I'm not saying, but I've seen sometimes, and I've had to say, look, I have to do this interview with that girl now alone. Go take a coffee and we'll see you later. Because it's just like, it's not the same attitude and not the same way of acting and behavior.
You feel very safe around your peers.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally free to speak on whatever you feel like. Yeah, no boundaries, no limits.
Yeah.
I like that. And you ask a question at Sibylle Blanger in the movie Verso. You asked her, she was climbing, she was going from climbing to going skiing on a 4,000-meter peak, if I'm right. And you say, what would be 3 words that, how would you describe the mountains in 3 words? How you feel in the mountains? So if you were asked the same question you asked her, how do you feel in the mountains in 3 words?
I feel free. I feel good, and I feel at home, basically. And the latest one is the most important. It feels like it's my teddy bear. Like, when I'm in the mountain, it's just like nothing can happen, really. I mean, a lot can happen, but
So much.
you know.
But you feel like it's a safe environment. I don't know. It's uplifting. It's immersive, evolving, and if you grew up in the mountains too, then it really does feel
Yeah, exactly.
like home.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to many of us here who we're all outdoor people. So no matter what, you always seem to come back to the outdoors.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, before we switch to the last part, which is basically the future of the mountain culture, if any of the girls creators right here had questions to speak to Alicia, either on the Freeride World Tour or on the film she has done.
Sorry, I'm still in my speak here. So I'm very loud when it comes to this. So obviously one of the hot topics at the moment, certainly, in my network of friends, is freeride in the Olympics. And I guess it would be interesting to kind of hear your take on how that kind of might change the Freeride World Tour, and also how that might kind of change the sport in general. So it'd be good to kind of hear your perspective on both.
Yeah, that's a good question. So of course if it happens, if it becomes Olympic, it's gonna be an amazing spotlight. Of course, knowing that my sport or our sport is an outdoor sport, and it feels so weird to think that 20 years ago it was just a bunch of people at the bottom of a mountain or at the top of a mountain in Verbier, and then all of a sudden, fast forward, and it's maybe in the Olympic in 2030. But I think the Olympics showed that it can keep the spirit of a sport, with the surfing, for instance, and with skateboarding. I know less about skateboarding, but for the surfing for sure. Because those 3 sports are not just sports, they are sports that come together with a community and with a massive sense of lifestyle, community. So I would have been scared that we would lose that, but with surfing, we see that it doesn't happen. So I think it would just be a great spotlight, and hopefully we can get even more support to go towards more or bigger actions in sustainability, gender equality, and safety, and also bring that to the Olympics, because they say that they are equal, but they're not, and they still have one sport that is represented with men only, which is Nordic combined.
Yes. This needs to change. And it has been needing to change. The women are very loudly about it to change it, but they're not being heard. So hopefully someone hears it. Like, we need to spread that word around.
Yeah. I did a web series about this last year. Actually, I spent the entire winter with them to do a web series to bring attention to them. And it's the only sport, the only Olympic sport that is not equal today. And yeah, hopefully we can bring our best practices and say, hey, look at us. I mean, I'm not saying we're perfect, but we're trying at least.
Thank you.
Good question. What are some tangible changes that you want to see at the Freeride World Tour in maybe the next 5 or 10 years?
I'd want to see viewers not dropping when we are showing the women on the live webcast. That would make me very happy. I want to see those ugly comments or gender biased comments on posts on our women freeriders. Would that be juniors, qualifiers, pro? I would want to see those ugly comments go away because we still have some. And I would really want to see those people behind the screen on top of Bagdalos or wherever. And I would want to see more women in every aspect of freeriding. So I'd want to stop struggling to find judges for Freeride World Tour. I would just want to stop to have this conversation before every season with my colleagues being like, hey, don't you have any idea for a live host, women live host or women judge or women blah, blah, blah. And also more women behind the camera would be nice. Yeah.
So we observed that in the last 3 years, it really improved in terms of like performance in women. And at least on my side, it makes me super happy because when I was working at the tour 3 years ago, it was not at that level. And like, in which way do you think like it changed it? It changed like the performance and what do you think in women like they became more aware of everything and that they pushed their limit like since 3 years? Because like as for instance, Elizabeth, like she told me recently that she's going to NST and she was like, yeah, now every woman can do like a backflip, she can do 360, and that was not the same case like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And I would say that every big changes takes a long time, of course. And but what do you think about like what made them change?
Yeah.
Not very clear question, but
It is.
use my points.
It is clear. So yeah, 3 years ago it was not the level we see today. Women started to get access to freeriding and to being able to live from freeriding decades after men. So they were just decades late and just trying to keep up. And some ladies came to the tour and brought some freestyle elements which were really missing on the women's side. We've had very technical women dropping the biggest cliffs, but the freestyle element were really missing from the women categories. And now with athletes such as Justine that you mentioned before, Astrid, Edvig, of course, Manon. I can't recall all of them, but there's many girls who moved the lines and made everyone more eager to try and jump and do some tricks. And I was talking with Sibylle yesterday and she was like, my specialty is like big cliffs, but I know that I have to, throw 360 or throw such tricks now. And that's really pushing the sport forward.
I have another one. Oh, you've got another one.
I'm just
Sorry.
sorry, Alicia. But I think it's really pleasant to see that now. Like it makes me super happy because we still have like a lot of comments on post on women on the live. But like if you compare like I don't know 5 years ago, 3 years ago, like it's a bit less. And I hope like in the next 2 years or at least this year it's going to be different. But makes me happy to see that. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's really pleasant to see sometimes or to hear sometimes people say, wow, the best of this competition was really the ski women category. And
Yeah,
that's finally.
yeah. Finally, you become
Yeah, exactly. Finally.
women. Yeah.
So obviously we're in Val Thorens and the Freeride Tour competition is tomorrow. Who's your fun bet on?
Oh my God. The thing is that I have friends. So
It's a dangerous question.
yeah, it's a very dangerous question. On the women's side of me, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I did my fun bet. I'm actually betting for Lou because she's the local and she knows this mountain like her pocket. I think Jenna needs redemption from Bakera, so she's gonna send probably. Same goes for CBL. Same goes for Astrid. So those, I think, are the one to look. But you never know. I don't know all the. I'm an old one now, so I don't know the young guns, you know. And on the snowboard side, I would say Noemi, just because she's the local and she needs redemption from Bakira as well.
So you're ready to be impressed tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so are we. We're so excited to go up tomorrow. And I think it's a perfect place for us to leave this podcast. You have taught us so much and you will keep on teaching us, and you are leaving a real legacy just by creating the role head of sustainability. You will make, I'm sure it will become a larger department as it goes. And to end on a positive note, what was your favorite mountain moment of yours? Just a fun mountain anecdote.
Every time I'm being asked this question, I answer the same thing, but it's really you girls gonna relate. But it was the second morning of competition in a row in kicking horse in Canada. We couldn't do the competition in Japan, so we had to do 2 in a row in kicking horse. We were really freezing. It was like -30, and I went in the live webcast tent because at that time I was producing the live. Go in, and it was just night at this time. And at some point, we were about to start the competition. I'm like, okay, I need to go and pee. And I go out, and it's sunrise, and it's like this beautiful, like pink colors all over the mountains. And I was just alone peeing next to this tent, and I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And I've got the best job in the world. And yeah, that was my favorite mountain moment.
That's a heartwarming moment.
You girls can relate.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah. I had a similar one. I was up in the Arctic on Baffin Island. There's nowhere, and there's nothing around for miles and miles and miles. The closest thing that would be is a 5-hour plane ride from where we were. And then the tent, it's windy. And then you have to go out to pee. It's -50. And I go out to pee and I'm like, oh, this is going to be horrible. And it was the best time. Because it's crazy. You're like, why am I here? I love it here.
Yeah, exactly.
Uplifting moment.
It is.
But thank you so much for your work. You're a big inspiration. And I think I can speak for many of us when I say, please keep on leaving this beautiful legacy. You've been doing great work, and we know you're going to just keep thriving and get even more awards for your work because it is recognized, and it shines light on the women in sports and also the men, just the sports in general. For real. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annabelle.